Thank you to BQE, the makers of BQE Core, for their support of this episode. BQE Core is the software that makes it easy to manage your projects and people for maximum productivity and ultimate profitability. Learn more at bqe.com. Cormac, how you doing? Heavy sigh.
I swear.
Are you on a roller coaster?
I am.
You just get off like
Well,
break. The ride broke down.
Ride didn't break down. It keeps going in circles and circles. And when you think it's going to stop, it's like, nope, let's put you on another spin.
This is like the Eagles. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Wow. I mean, okay. So to preface all of my, I don't know, angst, worry, whatever you want to call it, we've been renters for a while, long-term renters and stuff. And so it's been a while since I was in the market for a house. And when we last owned our own home, the market wasn't like this. It was more of a buyer's market than a seller's market, I think. There was more inventory out in the world, and I don't remember, to be quite honest with you, I don't even remember what my interest rate was back then, but right when we thought the ride was over with and we were about to hop off and everything else, the interest rates started to climb. Well, the interest rates climbed up enough where we started to feel a little uncomfortable with where it was going to put us financially. It's not like it's not something that we couldn't afford. It was just something that we weren't quite sure we wanted to afford it like that, And so for once, I made a look before I leap decision instead of my leap before I look decisions. Which is a good thing, right? And so now you're back on the ride and you're rolling around and you don't see an end to it. And it's all in perspective. We've set many a virtual tour because this is a move out of state, and so
long distance,
and so it's kind of tough. But then we look at we set these virtual tours up. And we're just like, we really like a couple of these. And there is no way that a virtual tour is going to really do it justice. And so I think I've said that, we've driven there. So now we've driven there 4 weekends in a row.
Just a short jaunt.
Just a short little jaunt of 9 hours there, 9 hours back, 12.
Ad nauseum.
1,300 miles worth of driving for literally less than 24 hours of it all. You wake up.
Well, that's good. You don't want to accumulate, overnight expenses as much as possible.
Yeah, true. Yeah. And everybody's just like, oh my God, you're insane. You should just fly. And I'm like, wait, what do you like? We're trying to buy a home. So all expenses right now are locked into something else. Not to mention
time is money, Cormac. That's what they're saying. Time is money.
Not to mention the fact that at the same time as we're moving, we also have a child starting college, and there's, I don't know if anybody knows this, but college is a bit expensive these days. It's just one of these. I should have known what to expect, but I don't know, convinced myself, oh, it's going to be fine, and so I've gotten to the stage where the tables have turned, whereas my wife was the pessimist and I was the optimist, who now 4 long weekend trips in a row later, I'm becoming the pessimist and she's becoming the optimist. She's like, it'll work out.
So you originally thought this was going to be no sweat.
No. Didn't think it was going to be no sweat. That part I was a realist on. I just thought that, we're putting in good offers, how could they not take our offer? Well, it's not, it's not that they, can't take our offer. It's just,
These are the stories we tell ourselves. Totally. Like
Totally,
this is exactly how it works. Right?
Totally. And now we're looking at, and I've gotten some advice from, several people, but you were first. It's like, just buy the worst house in the best neighborhood. And
sweat equity. Yeah.
And so at first I was like, I really want to, I just want to ease into a house and not have to worry about fixing things up and all of this other stuff. But then I also was thinking to myself, who am I kidding? I want to make the house my own. I mean, that's what architects do. I mean, we want to shape things the way we would like them, especially our home. And there's been numerous times when I've had the opportunity to try to at least just shape it and, form it and all that other stuff. You're doing the same thing. And so, it's just like, well, maybe that's not a bad idea. And I'm just like, so I keep teetering back and forth with this. Do I want a project? Do I not want a project? Do I really want to put us through, potentially several years of renovations and changes and things like that? Or, am I okay with just moving on and like, really, and so just, you've got those in where we're looking. We've now come to the realization that for us to fit within our budget, it's going to be a fixer-upper. It's going to be something that can pass inspection, and it's like it's good enough to, then you can make it your own. Do we buy in the community that we want? With all aspects of that word is like, true where where we've been looking, which is in the Grosse Pointe, Michigan area. It is a tremendously amazing community. It's kind of an interesting architectural time capsule as well, because it was being developed, kind of like in the rise of the automotive industry. And these were places that it was growing up when the auto industry was growing up. And so when the wealth of the auto execs and stuff were rising, so was Grosse Pointe. And it's seen its ups and downs and everything else, just like the auto industry and just like Detroit itself. But it's kept it's kept this architectural nature to it that just is, it's quintessential. It's hard to explain. And as we get further along this journey, I'll share photos and pictures and everything else, and maybe even like show. It's just like, okay, Cormac bought a fixer upper. But it's so it's this kind of commitment to the lifestyle. It's the way of life. It's like what we want, not the lifestyle of like the fixer upper, but the lifestyle of like
this is the way.
Yeah, exactly. It's and so, but to do that, there's some sacrifices that are going to need to be made. And so I just think that it's back to your original question.
Yeah. That's the answer.
That's the answer.
Yeah, I could imagine. It is incredibly tiring, and kind of grappling with the thought of having to do all of the projects and what that really means. Because there's like there's this idea of like what you think that means, and then there's the reality of it. And I have done those things, and I've continued to do those things, and I still haven't figured out the reality of it ahead of time. Never. So the toll is large. I mean, and that has to be kind of understood by everybody up front, is the toll of doing the projects yourself, because the sweat equity is the biggest driving factor. You cannot be understated. And obviously, like, I'm not trained in any of this stuff, right? When it comes to installation of drywall or electrical or plumbing, like I can do it, yes, but am I trained in it? Is it an expertise? No. Does it take 10 times longer than it takes a professional? Yeah, the answer is yes. And then how does that actually play out on a timeline when you're living in the space as well and trying to balance work and family and activities and kids and all of that stuff in addition? Is that's where it gets really hard to kind of plan that all out or see it, in its reality. So, like I'm saying, I still haven't figured that out myself, and I've done it quite a few times. And then you have to think about the logistics of it all, and the materials prices, and all the tools that you will need to do the things. Where can you get them? Do you need to buy them? Can you rent them? Can you borrow them? Who has them? Where do you store them? All those things.
Yeah,
man, it's complex.
Well, the good thing is that all of the places that we are looking at all have like, detached 2-car garages. I'm like, well, there's the workshop, but it's there's a workshop, but there's a workshop that needs to be filled, and it needs to be filled with tools that I don't have because I didn't need them. I have some, but it's funny is like the last time I was a homeowner, I had all of those things because I was doing all of those changes. I was updating things. I was doing drywall. I was doing, I was moving plumbing and piping around and electrical work and all of this other stuff. And then we just through time over the course of the last 20 years have been moving around and, renting and all of these other things. And it's just, it's just like, well, I don't really need these. Every time we move, it's just more stuff to carry. So let's just sell this off. And so now we're back at it's just like, really?
Yeah. Right.
Like table.
Yeah. And then once you have that stuff, justifying your possession of it beyond the use of the one job is rather impossible.
But then you look at it, it's just like, okay, so if I don't want to do all of that, then the alternative is that I'm going to pay somebody else to do all this stuff. And yes, it'll probably get done faster, but no, I'll save, and here's the big air quotes, I'll save money. Think of all of the labor that I'm saving. And then you are a perfect example of, sure, you're saving the labor from somebody else doing it. But how many times have you gone back to the tool store? How many times have you gone back to the hardware store, the lumber yard, or all of these other things? And so you add all of that together and you say, could I have saved time and money and become efficient? And so people wonder, like, I always thought that architects were rich. Like, really? Have you ever talked to one that just says, yeah, I'm renovating my house? And it's just like, ooh, well, what contractor are you using? No, I'm doing it myself. And like, okay, you're doing it yourself. And so you must be saving a lot of money. Just the contrary. I'm spending 3 times as much and it's taking 5 times longer. Like, so why are you doing?
But it's being done right.
Yeah. You're like, oh, so you've done it so many times that you are, you're really good at it. I've never done it before in my life. You're just like, wow, why?
Yeah, right.
Like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting to think about it in terms of being an architect and selling time for money. That's basically what all architects do. And then when it comes to, so therefore, like if just with that statement alone, you would think that time is your most valuable resource. And if you're going to spend 2 to 5 to 10 times longer to do something that somebody else could do, it doesn't add up, does it?
No. Now, I mean, if it's part of, like, say, a business model, like the Eric Reinholds or people like that, who they do this kind of thing as part of their business model, as builders, architects, designers, this holistic approach. That's one thing. But you're just like, well, if you're the lunchbox architect that, clocks in, clocks out, and is working a full day and then coming home and then essentially working a full night, it's just like, don't worry, kids. The plastic will come down sometime in the near future. That you're just like,
oh man. Okay, so I can give you something to look forward to.
Oh, please.
Which has to do with your children. When they say, hi, Freddie. When they say, why isn't this done yet? Because, they do so much to help. They by playing video games, by doing the sporting, all of those things, helping around the house. Why isn't this done yet? When are we going to finish? When is the kitchen? When is the whatever project going to be done? Wow, this has really been going on for a long time now. like all these things that just get out the pointy object and stick it in your side, right? Just jabbing you. And at some point it becomes sport for them to do that. And they take great enjoyment by seeing you like give them the look like, it's done enough. It's good enough, right? We can now live in it. That is good enough. That's as far as I could take it, because that, like, finishing it is actually the really hard part. Starting it, doing the demo, that's fun. Okay. And then when you actually get in there and work and you realize that, oh man, this is taking a lot longer than I thought. Oh, this is a lot harder than I thought. Oh, wow. I didn't see this problem coming. How am I going to solve that? Oh, I'm going to have to get some more tools. I'm going to get some more materials. I'm going to have to change what I thought about this. Oh, I didn't order enough of that. I got to order some more, all those things. And then it's like 80%, man. And you're just like, you are mentally done with it. You just can't take any more of it. And that last 10, 15, 20% is just so hard to actually do yourself. But I digress.
You sound like you've got a little PTSD.
Well, it's funny because it just happened this weekend again. Like we had to order more mulch for the yard because, it breaks down over time, and we had some bare spots and we cleared off some new area that we wanted to cover. And so we got 8 yards of mulch dumped in the driveway. Why? Because it's cheaper to do it yourself.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, absolutely. you don't, there's been so many, like every year, I'm dropping the seats in the back of the truck and then I'm heading on off to the home store to get and we don't have a very big yard and we don't have a lot of like mulched areas, but ends up 10, 15 bags worth of mulch per season that we're, laying down and redoing and all of this other stuff and just zhuzhing the whole place up and everything. And so one of the interesting things about this whole adventure of looking at, okay, now we've reserved ourselves to, probably, looking at things that range from not, I won't say true fixer uppers. Everything that we are looking at, it's like, oh yeah, we can live in this, but we want to change this, or we want to change that, or we know that this needs updating or that needs updating. And, and it's just this daisy chain effect of other things that we want to do. And so every time we walk into a new place that we know is, within our range, we fall down this rabbit hole of, okay, well, what are we going to fix? And it's just this.
You should buy it first, so you don't spend any brain.
Oh, I know.
Any brain cells on places you won't live in.
But easier said than done. Because
and then live in it for a while before deciding that stuff.
Well, you're right on all aspects of that. But it's easier said than done because one, I think my wife is just as much in the mindset of an architect as I am, where, we are sitting there and we just look at things. It's just like, okay, so if we buy this, what is the potential? What is, what are the things that could, make it ours? What would we do to this that we actually would think that it would be worth us choosing this one over this one, kind of thing? And right now it's getting to the point where it's not, what we choose. It's whatever's going to choose us, because we're at that stage of just
yeah,
whatever,
anything,
man.
please.
Anything.
Just let this problem be done.
Exactly.
Yeah. Right. So you guys are going to head back out there again.
Well, funny enough,
look at the short list.
Funny enough, the fifth weekend. So just short list. Let me just tell you that 3 out of the 4 weekends that we've gone there, we've actually left making offers on the house, on a house, if not 2 houses. And a lot of times that's either rejected because, we're going through a VA loan process. And part of that process is a slightly more stringent inspection process and appraisal process that sellers, I am now finding out, are afraid of.
What are they hiding?
Well, and that's the thing, is just so did I tell you this story about one of the houses that we placed an offer on, and then they didn't accept our offer. And this is a really nice quirky Tudor house in the Grosse Pointe Farms area, and 1,700, 1,750 square feet, actually. So, not a bad size. It was an odd layout, so it wasn't as efficient as, the 1,700 could be. But it was still, something that was kind of an interesting, I always use the word interesting with this house, an interesting house. That, you look at it and you're like, okay, it's in the 1926, 1924 house. I can't remember now. But, so it's closing in on 100 years old. But funny enough, has like really strong, good bones. Now its circulatory system, on the other hand, maybe not so much. So they rejected our offer because the seller basically was worried that it wouldn't pass inspection. So he went with another offer. So as that offer was...
so there's another offer where it's just, more lenient with the inspection?
Well,
I guess.
Yes. So, but this was an unoccupied house. And during the wintertime in Michigan, they turned off all of the water. Now, this is radiators, so radiant heating. And they turned off all of the pipes. The pipes froze. Inspector comes in, turns the water back on. Pipes burst everywhere.
Dodged a bullet
in the house. And
I think we did talk about this.
Yeah, and so when we went back to look at it, because then they came back to us and said, well, are you guys still interested in this house?
Oh my gosh.
So we were like, well,
you're like, yeah, just take $100K off.
Well, we were saying, look, I mean, we're not going to offer the same amount. Obviously we're going to come down in price because, and now he's looking at an anchor that he's got, around his neck. And so we walk in and I'm just like, this is a lot of new drywall that's going on here, and, really poorly done and not patched in very well. And, you can just smell the water damage in there. And apparently once they were removing drywall and plaster and everything else to fix the plumbing issue, they found black mold. And we're like, yeah, nah, thank you though. I mean,
best to avoid.
I mean, like, I appreciate your I appreciate the return on this. You said no, and so please accept us saying no as well. And so we were just like, ooh, dodged a bullet there. I mean, would it have put us where we wanted to be? Sure. Do we understand that it would have been a fixer-upper anyway? Sure. Do we want to live in a black mold infested home? No. Yeah. So we were like, whew, dodged that bullet. And so,
unfortunately, every house that's been around this long has something like that behind the plaster.
Oh yeah,
behind the drywall.
Oh yeah.
And it's like you just don't know where or when or how large that's going to be, but it's there. They're all there. Definitely.
And so I have no, and I think I've said this before, but I have no. I know what I'm getting into. How about let's just say that if we're looking at homes that are almost 100 years old, were they made with the best waterproofing? No. Were they made with the best insulation? No.
They might have been made with the best of those things at that time,
which was not.
But maybe.
which in 1926 was none of the modern technologies.
Oh man, I've opened up walls in my house and there's just no insulation.
Oh yeah. I mean, the house I'm in right now, I mean, during the wintertime, you lean up against the wall, you feel like you're sitting inside and leaning up against the wall of your freezer because it's that cold. And you're just like, I mean, you wonder why our single pane aluminum frame windows when we wake up are completely covered in condensation because there's no thermal barriers of any kind. So anyway, yeah, so that's the adventure, and the adventure continues.
Let's take a quick break to share more about our sponsors. Systems and standard operating procedures. You already know that's how to build a profitable business and find the freedom you want. You need systems and procedures. But you struggle with choosing the systems you need most and how to implement those systems quickly so you can get back to doing what you love most. The Designing Your Business Masterclass series was created by an acclaimed architect and business consultant, Douglas Teager, FAIA, to help fellow architects and engineers run their firms more profitably while maintaining a healthy work-life balance. Douglas grew from a solo practitioner to become managing partner of his 30-plus person firm, and then later sold his firm so he can do what he does today, helping architects be more successful at Teager Consulting. On the third Wednesday of every month, Douglas dives deep into an essential topic that will strengthen the profitability of your firm and make it sustainable for growth in the years to come. Register now for the Designing Your Business Masterclass with Douglas Teager at bqe.com/masterclass and start implementing powerful systems for the profitability you need and the freedom you want. Every live masterclass session includes AIA continuing education credit, and when you visit bqe.com/masterclass, you'll have access to the full library of past sessions on demand. The Designing Your Business Masterclass is free, and it's brought to you by our friends at BQE, the makers of BQE Core, the software that makes it easy to manage your projects and people for maximum productivity and ultimate profitability. Register now for the next Designing Your Business Masterclass at bqe.com/masterclass. That's bqe.com/masterclass. And now let's get back to our conversation.
I think in a way we seem to be panicked that we won't find anything. And because there's such a small inventory out there and everybody's looking right now, and because of the interest rates that are climbing in and we were talking with our lender, and the lenders were like, look, we've been in meetings where the Fed is eyeballing a 7% rate. I'm like, what? Like, I don't.
Yeah. So have you guys really considered just not buying?
We are,
because that is a choice, right? I mean, I get it. Moving twice would suck, but is there a worse time than right now to try to buy a house? Just throwing it out there.
Look, we're getting to that stage of that kind of thinking, and we're just not sure right now. And I think that
how have you looked at the rental market at all? I know you're renting right now, but you've been in this place a long time. So what's the rental market like right now?
Here's the thing: is the rental market, the rental rates, they're going up as well. I mean, because that's what I would assume. People are sitting on houses that they would otherwise probably want to sell, and they're like, okay, well, I've moved out. Like we're looking at one where the owner, it's been unoccupied, and the owner moved out, and they're in another state now, and they want to get rid of the house, but they also see that buyers are getting a little slim because the interest rates
priced out.
Yeah, they're getting priced out. And
interesting. Yeah. So it kind of these two are going together.
Oh, absolutely. And it's a tough one out there because there's comfort zones that everybody is looking at, wanting to maintain. And for us, and me being a remote worker and knowing that I'm going to have to, every once in a great while travel back and forth to the office, which probably is going to be an out-of-pocket expense, and things like that. It's just like we want to be smart. I mean, like we don't want to live for a house. We want to live in a house, but I don't want to live for a house. And so, it's just, I have learned more about finances and economics and everything else of the housing market in my 4-week crash course than I knew.
Kind of how it works.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's interesting that I've also learned is that the interest rates for VA loans are actually amongst the lowest right now. And so to still be able to get into a decent rate, now is the time. If I wait any longer, then those loans will continue to escalate, just like conventional or FHA loans and things like that. And the only ones who aren't suffering right now, which a few of our offers that were rejected were cash offers. Cash is king, man.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Damn cash.
Yeah. I don't know where it comes from. I honestly just don't even understand how that works. It's totally foreign to me.
Totally agree. I mean, I people are just like, oh, well, we have a cash offer, and so the seller decided to go with them. Like, I mean, bummer for me, but totally makes sense. I mean, at least you got something that's guaranteed. I'm just wondering.
I've read something about that it doesn't make sense. It does make sense on the surface, but in the bigger picture, I don't remember the details other than it's not the best solution all the time, but people seem to jump at it because it sounds like there's just some kind of myth that it is.
Well, for at least the seller, it's, like they don't have to worry about whether or not the buyer has got their financing in order, or whether or not, like all of these other unknowns, where I don't know if it makes sense for the buyer. Whatever. I mean, to each his own.
So this is your newest biggest problem. So you've jumped in and you've learned so much so fast.
Yeah.
This crash course, you said.
Yes.
Isn't that interesting? Just psychologically, that's kind of how it works, right? And I mean, that's no different than anybody who has to learn something for some reason or another can learn it pretty quickly, at least the foundational stuff. And it's so interesting to think about that as a way to solve a problem, right? Especially now where information is just so freely available. You just have to kind of pick the right, like this is easy or something, pick the right teacher. But the information is out there. And I think that is such an interesting thing because I think about our profession and how we've kind of just boiled this frog, right? And gotten to the point where we continue to solve problems the exact same ways we've always solved problems. There's very small differences from the projects we're doing now to the projects we were doing 10 or 20 or 25 or 30 years ago, as far as the approach, right? Like some of the technology has changed, some of the delivery has changed, but kind of not, right? Like it's still the same type of contracts. We're still doing the drawings. We're doing all the sheets. We're doing more of the drawings than we've done before. And it's just so interesting to think like, because there's no existential crisis like you're facing right now, like we've got to move. We're going to move several states away. We've got to do it in the next month. Like that's an existential crisis of some magnitude, right? So, but our profession doesn't have that existential crisis. It doesn't seem to have it, even though I think it is there. Like you look at climate change, you look at the energy codes, you look at, the price of building materials. Like I keep seeing people on Twitter, like architects saying, how long are people going to put up with this? Our clients, how long are our clients going to continue to say yes to $120 sheets of plywood, right? Like this is an existential crisis, but people continue to like, yeah, I guess we have no choice, right? We have no choice. We have to do this. So we're going to pay for this. And these companies that produce these commodity materials are saying, yeah, we'll take your money right now because we can, because everybody continues to pay these. Like this is the new supply and demand ratio, and people are willing to demand the price we're asking for the supply. And here we are as architects, like kind of like holding our hands up like, whoa, I don't know that there's anything we can do about this, and we're going to continue to do it. Like we don't have this, we're going to solve this problem. We're going to jump in and fix the way that we do things. I don't know. Just an observation, I guess, more than anything. It's just, wow. We do see how we can change our behavior, change our tactics, change our strategies when you feel threatened, right? Like this is the total, amygdala, the lizard brain, fight or flight. Like we're going to fight right now. Like we're going to dig in and we're going to solve this. Because there's this threat, right? Of like, man, we got to do this thing. Architecture doesn't seem to respond to that. I think that's super interesting.
Yeah, I know, right?
So there's my observation for the episode. And what do we do about that? I don't know. Like I said, it's an observation. It's not really but these are the kinds of conversations that like you can take this idea and apply it to what we see in our profession and say, how come it's like that? What are we getting? And then everybody kind of looks at the person next to them and say, I thought you were doing something about that. Not my problem. Yeah. So, and cut. Like cliffhanger. I
Dun,
would
dun,
love to
dun,
know
dun.
what people think about that. I know there are people trying to do things about that, but I think at scale, our industry is just kind of failed in this regard of actually addressing these types of problems. And it's just like, no, we're just gonna keep doing what we've always done, right? Like they say that's the most dangerous words ever uttered in an office. We're gonna do it because it's the way we've always done it. And yet, like that's it. That's actually how it works, right?
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's how, that's it's kind of like the lack of effort that we put into it. It's just like, okay, well, we know what we know what the problem is, but it's almost like this lack of R&D that we've talked about in the past, where we know that there's things that we've got to change. There's approaches we've got to change and things like that we can make these issues better, but we don't, because that would expend more time, more budget than we're willing to put in. And so we say, well, okay, well then, let the next person figure it out. Well, let's just get through this one, and we'll look, we'll think about it on the next project, or the next project, or the next project.
Yeah.
And so we just keep kicking the can down the road, rather than just saying, hey, let's try to tackle this, head on, because this is something that not only will benefit, like just say the client at hand, but the client, the profession, and the industry wide, now and later on down the road.
Yeah, that Venn diagram. I think this is part of the issue, right? Is that we as in the profession, maybe even the building industry, has an identity problem. Like, who are we and why do we exist? I think it is kind of interesting to think about that overarching issue, because different firms, the profession itself, can't really pin it down. And because we can't pin it down, we can't communicate it to others to see the value in it. And so therefore we just become, like, in our case, yes men, right? Like, because we're men, we are the yes people. And so it's just like, yeah, we'll do that. Yeah, we'll do anything. We'll do that. Yeah, we'll bend over backwards. Yeah, we'll do it for less. There's all of these things because we can't communicate the value, because we don't know who we are or why we exist. I mean, if you look at the history of architecture, we're artists. We serve the ultra rich, the powerful. Let's put it that way. Not even the rich, the powerful. We are here to serve the powerful. We continue to do that, right? Like, these are the clients who can afford architects. So even then, like, we look at what comes on the cover of a magazine, and it's the starchitecture stuff that most architects don't get to do, but it's what we're communicating as our value, as being able to build beautiful forms, is a very small percentage of a built environment. And we still can't even communicate the value of it, like, because we talk in pictures. We kind of understand as architects the value of that stuff, and it makes us feel good, but it's not communicating anything to anybody else except, like, wow, that looks really freaking expensive. You're wasting my money, my tax dollars, in the case that I'm thinking about, on that kind of stuff. And so it is hard to translate that value because we don't know who we are. Like, and I think there's a huge struggle within the profession right now and we've seen this, where there are a few architects trying to do the social good, the environmental good, but for the most part, not, right? And so I think that identity crisis is really not serving us well. Anyway, more observations. I don't know. These just kind of things that I just wonder, like, how long can it last? How long can this profession deserve to exist? Does it deserve to exist? Like, it serves a purpose, but I don't know if that. There are so many people trying to go around it, avoid it. Don't need architects on 80% of the projects,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't even need them.
Right.
Why would we want to spend more, have more red tape? I don't know. It just that there's a lot there to unpack. So I think a lot of people just see us as being rather unpalatable, our profession. So avoid. Deep thoughts. Thanks for going on this journey with us.
Exactly. Deep.
Well, good luck, man.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're going to have a big trip, and hopefully something comes out of it this time in the positive. But it is a long road for sure. It's difficult. On top of all your other stuff, like no, but you didn't ask for this. I know you guys want this because it makes a lot of sense for you guys. But this is it's a huge project in itself.
Yeah. So just I gave it a deep sigh in response, but now it's just a deep breath. Deep breath, strap in.
Because you're going under?
Well, no.
You're going to dive deep.
Strap in, enjoy the ride. Don't, you actually said it best is like, don't get wedded, to any of these. Just take it slow until you get the keys in your hand. Don't marry yourself to any of these things because it's not a reality till you have the keys in hand.
Yeah, it just can't let it be emotional because once you do, then you get crushed. And then it gets really hard to pick yourself up off the floor and do it again because you don't want to get crushed again.
Right, exactly. And I will say that there's been many a time in this, funny enough, just 4-week adventure, really, that we've gotten a little too emotionally attached. And I got to the point with my wife, I'm like, look, you know what? Here's the thing. I don't think I can't get wed to any of these anymore. I've got to just, divorce myself from the emotion of all of this and just find the right place for us to get into the neighborhood we want to be in. And let's just kind of like figure it out when we're there. But let's just, I don't know if it's still a pessimistic view or not. I don't feel like it is. I just feel like it's the realist view.
Yeah, I still have a question for you. This is, I think I don't know where you fall on this, but because I'm sure this is a gradient, but it's the emotional attachment to a thing like this. And in this case, let's call it space, right? Which is something that we can relate to as architects and getting emotional about space versus a business decision. Like those are two very different approaches to it. And they might not lead to different outcomes. I guess they could. And then I just think about like the general person out there who is house shopping. Do you think that they fall onto the side of emotional connection with the thing as well? I tend to sense that they do, but I'm wondering if you think that if they approach this more from a business strategy first or not. Because I don't know. I mean, I'm not that other person, so I haven't asked that other person with this question.
So it's interesting. It's because we had started looking at this as purely an emotional, attachment and pursuit. And then as we started to get into it a little bit more, it's just like, okay, we're looking for a place, we're looking for a community, we're looking for, all of these things. And then we got to this stage where like, okay, well, now we know that, these ranges that we're looking at and stuff are going to be a little bit more, needing updates and stuff like that. Not to say that they're, not ready to live in, but, they're just, legitimately going to need some updates. So as we're looking at that aspect of things, we then start looking at the financial aspect and say, okay, what do we think is a likely return on our investment if we, if we go in low, we buy this place, we fix it up, and later on down the road, we decide, what are the cost benefits for all of this? And so we've actually approached it in two different, both emotionally and business.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I have you made a spreadsheet?
Not,
you need a spreadsheet to compare, do comps between these different properties. On that kind of a thing.
We haven't done spreadsheets, but we will sit down, we'll look at the numbers, we'll pull up like the tax records from, not only the, house that we look at, but also the house, the adjacent houses and all the comps and everything. And we, try to run all of the numbers and things. And it's just like,
don't look at the tax records, man. If you just want to feel depressed,
oh my
look
gosh,
at the tax records. I know.
Yeah,
exactly.
That too. But I mean, but what that does though is that, other than the fact that it's just like, we've assessed this property at this value. I'm like, well, then why are they selling it at that value? Because something doesn't equal up. But that right there, I was just like, yeah, I already know this, so I'm not going to even bother asking that question. But
just thinking though about this from a business perspective, this is what developers do when they're doing projects, right? And this is what Clifton at TestFit has built into his tool, TestFit, right? Which is, there's a pro forma, kind of all the numbers are on display as design decisions are being made. And I think this is something that came up on my other podcast, but it's like, architects should be, instead of communicating design just in the value of design in the pictures and in the communication and in like the list of amenities, you should be communicating in the form of, what is the monthly payment difference between this decision or that decision? Because that right there is the language that people can understand, right? And if you can say like, man, you could have this amenity for $20 more per month over the life of the loan, would you do it? Right? Instead of, that's going to cost $5,000 or $6,000 more, right? And whatever the numbers actually work out to be, I don't know. But you know what I mean? Like, people, that is a very different decision to be made. Like, you can live with one of those and you cannot live with the other, most likely, right? But it's the same thing in the end. So it's kind of interesting to think about, as developers think about these projects as pro formas. They think about them as business decisions. They think about them as investments and return on investments and those kinds of things. And you are telling me like, you guys got emotionally connected to this thing. And I'm wondering where normal people fall on that scale, because I tend to think that for most people, like, because real estate and because buildings are not their business, they still tend to fall on the emotional side of things. But it does kind of open my eyes and potentially your eyes to looking at it from the other side and saying like, how can I be less attached, make a better decision that I'll feel better about, and then I can delayed gratification, fall in love with it later after it's really mine, kind of a thing. I don't know. So you guys have some homework to do. I just assigned homework. I want you to now change your approach. Sounds like you've already done it though. You've already started looking at those kinds of things, and that's you kind of have to, right? When it's an investment this big. And I think that's another thing we get a little bit detached from when we're talking about architecture, is these are the biggest decisions people make in their whole lives.
Oh yeah.
And we don't tend to think of it that way because we do it all the time.
Right. Exactly.
And not only that, but we're not invested in it. It's not ours, right? So we are further detached from it than I think we should be. But I think that's another interesting way to look at it, is like, wow, like these really are huge, huge decisions. People are spending their life savings on this thing, this one thing, and this one process. So you can see why it's scary for a lot of people. And that's why another reason why they avoid going to an architect, right? It's because you can tell them a bunch of stuff. You're going to have them think about a bunch of stuff that they're not really emotionally prepared to think about or want to get into or trust you with, right? As a person they don't really know.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting stuff to think about,
isn't it?
Well, best of luck, man. I mean, you got this.
Okay, so first, heavy sigh and deep breath.
Yep. Heavy sigh, deep breath. That's the order.
That's the order.
Thank you to BQE, the makers of BQE Core, for their support of this podcast episode. Visit bqe.com/masterclass to register for the next Designing Your Business Masterclass. Thanks for listening. This show is part of the Gable Media Podcast Network. See all the shows at gablemedia.com. That's GABLMEDIA.com. You can help support what we're doing here by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts to help get the word out, and don't forget to share it with your friends. We'd love to hear from you, so leave a comment on the website at archispeakpodcast.com, where you can find our entire catalog of shows. Talk to you soon.